Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use starts now. Everybody's talking about Maduro. What on earth happened to the Jeffrey Epstein files? I'm Sam Bushman. Welcome to the show. Sheriff Richard Mack will be joining us momentarily. Have we got a bunch of stuff to talk about related to the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association? Of course, the answer is yes. We've got an event coming up this weekend in Washington. Our enemies, I shouldn't say our enemies because, well, our opposition, you might say, they're on attack. They consider us their enemies, although I don't really consider them our enemies. Very strange how that all works. We'll get into it all as the broadcast breaks down in seconds. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, this guy criticized the Justice Department saying, hey, whatever happened to the January 3 deadline to, release all the Epstein files, all that kind of stuff? Kind of went and passed, huh? Never got it. Pam Bondi not doing what she's supposed to, they claim. The report, they say, was legally required. All government officials that were listed, politically exposed personnel, it's all supposed to be not redacted. You heard me, unredacted. Schumer expressed concerns over the missed deadline on social media. The deadline, they say, coincided strangely with the U.S. strike on Venezuela. Chuck Schumer highlights the idea that it's been 17 days since the, quote, initial violation of the law by Pam Bondi, or the Justice Department, if you will, which failed to release the Epstein files in accordance with the legislation Donald Trump signed. Now, here's the question, the Republicans are going to say is, oh, the Democrats weren't worried about it when they were on watch for 4+ years. Well, it was the Joe Biden, whatever. They weren't worried about it, And so then what they want to do is that Republicans want to point at the Democrats want to point at the Republicans, and, well, they just play the blame game, point at somebody else and say, those guys, they're the bad guy. Look, I don't give a rip if the Republicans cared about it before or not. I don't give a rip if the Democrats cared about it before or not. The fact is, Jeffrey Epstein was an evil man, convicted as a pedophile sex offender. Convicted, I might repeat. And so I want to know who was around him. I want to know what went on. I want to know what government officials or rich, wealthy philanthropists or et cetera funded this guy. I want to know what they did with this gentleman in terms of illegal activity, criminal activity, sex trafficking, and the like. And the problem is we're not getting any pay dirt. Pam Bondi has been caught in confusion after confusion. Kash Patel seems to be silent on the discussion as well for some strange reason. And, Dan Bongino decided to bail. He just couldn't take it anymore with inside the, and I'm just going to put my own words to this, scandalous Justice Department under the Trump administration. Trump saying, go after it. Let's get the Epstein files released. Then he came back and said, no. Then he said, it's a Democrat hoax. Then he said, no, I'm for releasing the files. I don't know what gives here, but to me, I'm not here to defend Chuck Schumer either. I think he's a clown in my personal opinion. But the point that I'm driving at is, hey, now that we're all talking about Maduro, nobody's talking about the Epstein files, right? And Pam hasn't released them. And you got to ask why. And what happens when Pam Bondi's in violation of the law here? Nothing? Nothing? That's really the question. Sheriff Richard Mack, president of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org. Welcome back to the broadcast, sir. All right, we'll work on getting the good sheriff online here. Sometimes technical issues. We had him switch computers for a better connection, and we'll get to that. But I don't really understand here. What they want to do is just say, oh, Chuck's he's the minority leader. He's this, okay. He's that. Welcome, Sheriff.
Well, thanks, Sam. I guess I was having some technical difficulties there. Anyway, it's great to be back with you today, this beautiful Tuesday morning here in Arizona, obviously. And I guess there's a heat wave going across the Midwest. Texas is having 80-degree temperatures today, and so people get a little taste of Arizona today.
Yes, they do. Although Arizona is beautiful in the winter, in the summers, I'll leave it to you, sir. But we're talking about this issue about everything's all about Maduro. But what about the Epstein files? Chuck Schumer On social media saying, hey, we got to have the Epstein files. Why is Pam Bondi breaking the law? The Republicans want to point at the Democrats. The Democrats want to point at the Republicans and play the blame game. Hey, you weren't for it before you were for it and all this other stuff. But Maduro seems to be eclipsing this reality. What happens when Pam Bondi breaks the law and she hasn't released what she was demanded to release by Congress and the president? Sheriff?
Yeah, I don't know what she's playing. It looks suspicious, obviously. I don't know why they held the evidence about JFK assassination for 50, 60, 70 years. And I don't get any of this. I don't get the FBI trying to protect the American people from the horrible situation of 9/11. And so they hurried up and got rid of all the evidence so they could bring closure. They did pretty much the same thing at the Oklahoma City bombing. They've done it on numerous cases where they pretend to be the mortician that wants to bring closure and help the family get over this horrible tragedy. That's not the federal government's job. It's not Pam Bondi's job to decide what evidence to release and what evidence not to release. The case for Jeff Epstein is no longer in court. So you can go ahead and release this. His Maxwell, his partner in all these crimes, is in prison. Release the files. Okay.
I say
Trump
release
said
the
to release
files,
them.
but the other problem is she's in a prison, but they moved her to a basically low rate or low threat prison or whatever you want to call it, low security.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a camp in Texas. Why they would do that for somebody in her position, I just don't understand either.
Well, I'm not worried about that so much. I don't like the idea that they have soft prisons. For these people, you get real easy one.
Well, Tina
I was
Peters
really
has
glad.
a hardcore prison, and this lady's got a soft prison. Do you see the comparison I'm making?
Yeah, of course. But you see, the thing of it is, Sam Girard had a very soft prison, a very nice prison.
And I don't have a problem with that.
But he shouldn't have been in at all. That's the thing.
Of course. But at least a soft prison would make sense for him. But this is a hardened, literally perverted criminal that protected a sex offender and a child, whatever you want to say.
And again, that doesn't bother me as much as the real point that we're trying to talk about, and that is the Democrats and Republicans blaming each other. They're right. It is. They're both right. Yes. Democrats and Republicans are the problem.
And when they point the finger at each other, hey, you got the Democrats really talking about
finally
the Constitution.
Right.
Now that it comes to Maduro, they're talking about the Constitution. And so it's a big battle. And I bring it up because I don't want to lose sight of the Jeffrey Epstein files, ladies and gentlemen. We need the truth on this. And to me, it's not even so much of trying to, out Bill Clinton or out Donald Trump or out this person or that person. I don't have that agenda, really. I don't want to out Bill Gates or anybody else. What I want to do is find out who the criminals are, and I want to prosecute them. And then the second thing I really want out of this Jeffrey Epstein file thing is to say this, and nobody's asking this question but me, and I'm going to repeat it until we get answers. Is Jeffrey Epstein's criminal sex, child trafficking ring continuing, Sheriff? Because I don't believe, look, when a drug cartel loses a big leader, the drug cartel doesn't go away. Somebody else just jumps into the leadership role, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why isn't anybody bringing this up with the Jeffrey Epstein thing? We act like, oh, he's dead. It's not really that big of a deal. Democrat hoax. These people are gone, and there's really no scandal. We've released all this and that. But I want to know if the ring is continuing. And my experience would say, you're foolish if you think it's not, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And it could be, it just depends on who the co-workers were with Epstein. Did he and Maxwell control and do the whole thing? That's possible. But it's also very possible what you're saying, and it's a very good point. What we do know is that human trafficking and sexual exploitation trafficking of children, selling children into sex slave markets around the world is still happening. And I don't believe that our governments have ever done enough to stop that.
Well, I hope we get answers, and I'm not trying to make the allegation like I know for a fact that there's a sex ring. I don't have any evidence to that, etc., except to say this. Jeffrey commits supposed suicide. We don't hear anything. There's cover-up after cover-up after cover-up after cover-up. Then we get a bunch of nonsense. Then we get a bunch of redacted stuff, and then we get, everybody's for getting to the truth on this thing, and then we still don't have any data. It just doesn't give me confidence that there is no continued ring. Because if it really did shut down with Epstein and Maxwell, then it seems to me to be very easy to just release the information. Unless there might be links to ongoing continued criminal abuses. We'll talk about it more with a good sheriff. We also got to talk about Maduro. What's going to happen? Greenland? We'll talk about it. Sheriff Mack, yours truly. Liberty Roundtable Live.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
All right, it's Sam Bushman and the good sheriff, Sheriff Richard Mack, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association.org. Ladies and gentlemen, CSPOA.org. We've got an incredible event going on in Washington State at the end of the week, Friday and Saturday. Would love to see you there. Check out the CSPOA, CSPOA.org, for more information on the details. So the coinciding of this Epstein mandated release with no redaction kind of stuff corresponds with the strike on Venezuela. Do you think there's a link there, Sheriff? We don't have any evidence of that, but it's sure interesting timing, sir.
Yeah. Well, the Maduro thing is gaining momentum on both sides, and that's kind of an irony in and of itself. The bottom line with me is I'm glad Maduro is in custody, and I'm glad that his reign of terror is coming to an end. I would not be surprised if he got released. It just wouldn't surprise me. You get him before some woke judges, and the judges of this country have completely destroyed any semblance of true justice going on in our court system. But it wouldn't surprise me if he got released. Should he be released? No.
If he's illegally in the United States, he should be deported, shouldn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
it's a little bit of a joke to make the point. We're getting more information on Maduro, though, folks. And whether you agree that he should be captured, whether you agree the president has unilateral action to take this, or whether you believe it's unconstitutional, I know there's a lot of debate in the freedom circles or liberty-minded circles, constitutionalist circles about this. Mike Lee first said it was unconstitutional, and then after talking to Marco Rubio, he came back and he said, hey, I think it's fine. The president does have that authority. I'm a hardliner in the sense that the Constitution does not grant the president that kind of authority. However, Sheriff Richard Mack and others would say, listen, just because Congress is do nothing and completely locked down, if you will, in gridlock, that shouldn't stop the president from protecting the United States. And there's some validity there. And the problem is you teach the ideal constitutionally versus the real, which is what Mike Lee and others, Sheriff Mack and others are saying is, hey, you know what? The president does have some of this power. Where does it start? Where does it end is kind of the question. But here's the point. President Trump did meet with some Republicans last night, had a big long meeting about it. He's supposed to explain more today, and more details are coming out about Maduro. And, you know, that might change the discussion in some people's minds, too, about the constitutionality. It doesn't for me, because the Constitution is clear, it's written, and we need Congress's involvement to carry out these kind of actions. That's just my opinion, to which I'm entitled. Others are saying, Sam, live in the real, buddy. The ideal is great, but live in the real. That's really the point that Mike Lee's making, too, that, hey, Congress has been derelict in their duty, and they've let the president do this for time and time and time again. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican president, Democratic president, hasn't mattered over the decades. And so based on court case precedents, based on, executive action and congressional, I don't know what you want to say, allowing the president to do this without calling him on the carpet, that's really where the debate on this thing is. And I'm not interested in that debate, but I am interested in the more details we're learning about Maduro. Okay. Turns out that Maduro, they say, provided terrorists with 10,000 Venezuelan passports. Did you see this, Sheriff?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and this is kind of to your point that, hey, this is serious, folks. We can't just walk around with our heads in the clouds and pretend these people are our friends. They're not. The report, they say, was verified by the Middle East Media Research Institute. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also confirmed Hezbollah presence in Venezuela. And so now this isn't just a discussion about even a drug dealer in Maduro necessarily. It's drug dealing and terrorism mixed together, and that Venezuela might be a vector for, a jihad kind of an idea. Rubio emphasized that under Trump's administration, hey, we're simply not going to allow Venezuela to be a launching pad for Hezbollah or other, Islamic entities, etc. That's a serious point, though, Sheriff, that I've got to admit that changes the game to some degree a little bit if the evidence is really right. Do they really, grant all these passports to these people and give them kind of a launching pad in our hemisphere? Is that the discussion?
Well, of course. And we've known that the infiltration of illegal aliens and gang members from Venezuela and other Latin American countries and Middle Eastern countries was part of the plan of the Biden administration. And there are so many that are culpable for this heinous treason. Maduro was playing the game, and he was winning against the United States of America, against our safety, against our security, against our sovereignty. And now they still have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of gangbangers from Latin America, the Tren de Aragua. We know they're here. We know we've done very little to get them out. And those of us who are trying to get these criminals, extreme criminals, very heinous and barbaric criminals that infiltrated our country, and the terrorists that infiltrated our country, any of us who want to try to get them out. Now, we're terrorists. Oh, we're racist. Oh, we believe in violence, and everything in the book they'll throw at us to make sure that the people that are trying to destroy America are allowed to keep going.
Well, and that's really kind of the rub here. And that's why, I understand that we live in the real, and I understand that people say, hey, we want to take action on this. The more we learn about it, the more you kind of say, hey, this guy is a bad guy. And, at what point can we stop terrorism, and at what authority do we have? Hey, we do have the authority for protection. When we go chase after leaders in foreign lands, though, I kind of feel like, at least when it comes to the scriptures, defensive war makes sense. When does this become offensive is kind of the question. And the reason I bring this up is because we're learning more, again, about who's involved and what the details are, what the landscape looks like. Mm-hmm. President Trump and CIA Director John Ratcliffe have been monitoring the operations in Venezuela. And they did so when the whole, thing went down from Mar-a-Lago. That's kind of interesting to me, too.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, hey, what about the other nations? Are we going to work on Mexico? Are we going to talk about Colombia? Are we going to, where does this start or end is the question, Sheriff.
Well, that's a great philosophical question, and it's a great realistic question. And I hope the tide is turning, that the evil secret combinations in the world know that Donald Trump is not kidding when he says, I'm coming after you. And I absolutely applaud the very bold steps that he has taken to get in the way of these people that have been what? These are the organizations that Maduro's a part of, are human trafficking, that they're used as simply a piece of meat that is there for the greatest bid, the monetary advancement of himself, and he destroys the country economically, yet he's a billionaire and continuing these heinous crimes. And one other thing that Trump said that he couldn't do, and is absolutely true, is take this to Congress, because someone in Congress, and it would have been several Democrats, would have divulged this to Maduro. And that's why he couldn't do it. And he's right. And this is the type of thing he has to deal with. And then, of course, when he does the right thing, going around a corrupt Congress, he's blamed for it. This is all on Congress to me, if you really want to know the truth.
And I would agree with that 100%. And that's why whether we live in the real or whether it's the ideal that I speak of, the fact is, hey, Congress is derelict in their duty, and Congress is primarily the problem. And what they want to do is they want to come back and say, guys, you've got to elect, conservative Republicans in 2020, MAGA people in 2026. You've got to do it, or else it's curse for us. This is our only shot. The problem is they've done nothing. And in my opinion, the biggest impediment to Trump has not been the Democrats. It's been the Republicans on our side, the Mike Johnsons and company, that have really done nothing. And that's really the problem that we face. Now, Trump did say that he's interested in taking this fight to other countries as well. So you got to kind of ask, what about Colombia, Greenland, Cuba, Mexico, Iran? I mean, what about all these countries? How is this going to play in? I know it's philosophical because he hasn't taken action yet. We'll probably find out about the action after the fact. But where do you think this heads? If we're not very careful, we're going to be kind of at odds with almost everybody in the world, Sheriff.
Well, it would definitely increase a decent percentage. I don't think it would be everybody, obviously, but there's some real serious problems.
Because doesn't Venezuela have ties to Russia too? I mean, they've got all kinds of ties with Russia, and we know that Russia, Ukraine, and we're on the side of the Ukrainians, at least when it comes to dollars and cents. And now we open up this thing, and I mean, is that the bigger play?
Well, it looks like it might be. He's already warning Iran about killing protesters. And he's also what's the country, Somalia, where they're killing Christians, where they're just killing Christians.
Yes.
And of course the Democrat says it's not even happening. It is happening.
Well, and we even have the whites being killed in Africa. That's been brought up, and they claim that's not happening, and then they say we're racist for bringing it up. So you can't even talk about who's getting killed anymore. You're a racist, right?
Yeah.
I want the killing to stop for everybody.
Yeah, I don't care what color they are. If people are being victimized and terrorized and murdered, I want to help them.
Amen. So that's probably part of the debate. Trump has accused the Colombian president of being a drug dealer too. We'll talk about that. We got to see where this is going to head. How do you take care of this and surgically deal with these things and not have it become a broader, wider blowback or hatred against America? We'll talk about that with a good sheriff in seconds. You're watching and listening to the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Declaring his innocence, deposed Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro has been arraigned in New York while he calls himself an innocent and a decent man. The BBC's Sarah Smith in New York says that's not the way prosecutors view it.
Nicolás Maduro and his wife are facing charges of narco-terrorism conspiracy and weapons charges. The indictment against them states that for more than 25 years they have enriched themselves by working with international drug traffickers to ship illicit drugs into the United States. Speaking in Spanish, Nicolás Maduro called himself the president of Venezuela before he was interrupted by the judge. The American Attorney General Pam Bondi has said that the former Venezuelan leader will soon face the full wrath of American justice, but it is likely to take years before a prosecution could be completed.
Maduro's ultimate fate. Elon Katz is a criminal defense lawyer in Mexico City.
Now, if Mr. Maduro is found not guilty by a jury, of course he will be set free. If he is found guilty, then he will spend the rest of his days in a federal prison along with his wife.
Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona is facing censure.
In November, Kelly joined 5 other lawmakers in a video that called on troops to uphold the Constitution and not follow illegal orders. Defense Secretary Hegseth said the censure was a necessary step toward proceedings that could result in a demotion from Kelly's retired rank of captain. Kelly responded by calling the move outrageous and wrong. The senator said it sends the message to every single retired service member that if they say something Hegseth or Donald Trump doesn't like, they will come after them the same way. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Wall Street's benchmarks are higher so far this morning, adding to yesterday's gains. Dow's up 114 points. The Nasdaq ahead 112. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment? That's a lie. Most timeshares can be bought online for $1. To find out what your timeshare is worth and to cancel it, call us today and we'll send you our timeshare exit kit free with all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley for your free exit info guide. 800-893-2288. That's 800-893-2288.
My name is Whitney Allen. I am a widow. My husband Ryan died. We never thought in a million years we'd have to use life insurance. The unexpected happened. With Ethos, it is so fast and easy. It's 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage, no medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage through Ethos.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The Foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education, conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen, the good Sheriff Richard Mack and Sam Bushman, breaking down all these discussions about Maduro, about the Epstein files. Interesting, these two things come to a head at the same time. Is that an accident? Nothing happens in politics by accident, they claim, but I don't have any evidence they're connected. It's just very strange that, hey, when the Epstein files are supposed to be all released and unredacted and everything else, Pam Bondi's not complying, and now we're taking on Maduro. And then the question becomes, is it just Maduro or who else is it? Trump has accused the Colombian president, what's this guy's name, Gustavo Petro, of involvement in drug trafficking. That's a big concern, too. And then the other question is that, well, wait a minute, Sheriff. I think over the years, the CIA has been caught with their hand in the cookie jar with drug trafficking, too, haven't they, sir?
Well, the accusations are certainly there, and Maxine Waters accused the CIA of doing that way back in, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and there's been all kinds of different news posts, articles about that kind of stuff, and, that they protect one drug cartel over another, that they're this and that. Even Bo Wrights back in the day, 30-plus years ago, he talked about drug trafficking and how he tried to get it stopped and stuff like that. He talked about over at the Vietnam and, some of those kind of things, and how there were, poppy seeds and drug trade and all that kind of stuff there. And he said he tried to get it stopped, and the U.S. government basically, outed him as opposed to doing what needs to be done there. So there's concerns about drug trafficking for sure. But this, to me, is what escalates this big time, Sheriff.
Yeah.
President Trump also mentioned concerns about powerful drug cartels in Mexico, and then pointed out the national security importance of Greenland, saying, hey, Chinese and Russian ships are all over that area there, and we just can't have that in our hemisphere. We're not safe while that's going on. I think it's a valuable point, Sheriff. I really do.
I do too. And really until Trump was just reelected this past year, and he hasn't even quite been in office a year yet, but I never heard anything about Greenland. In all my years of law enforcement and my years of working in narcotics, I've never heard of Greenland. But is Trump telling the truth about it? It looks like it is. Any time that we've gotten rid of something or been part of something like, the Panama Canal, it was a horrible idea to give that back to Panama, because immediately China took over. And so Russia and China are trying to be very imperialistic in combating anything that the United States does. They're almost like the Democrat Party, always against Trump no matter what. And Russia has been an enemy to America. Even during World War II, when we were supposed to be on the same side, we weren't.
That's for sure.
And so the Cold War was between the United States and Russia. And Russia is still going to try to get in the way of anything that America is trying to do, and pretty much vice versa in a lot of ways. But obviously the United Nations is a problem with all of this as well. But more power to President Trump for actually recognizing and knowing the problem that Greenland poses to the United States security.
So I think it's a serious point. I think it's a serious issue. Let me tell you what I've learned about Trump over the years, and I think this is a fair assessment. When Trump speaks, oftentimes he brings up things that we're not really caught up on. And when he does that, we're kind of like, oh my gosh, Trump's off the rails.
Yeah.
But then later, what you find is that he's not off the rails. In fact, what he says has great intel to it. And later down the road, 2, 3, 4 years later, all the details come out and it was like, okay, Trump was completely spot on. These other clowns that attacked him over it were completely ignorant and wrong. And so you find that happening a lot with President Trump. But the reason that I bring that up right now, Sheriff, is because when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, then we talk about Israel and Hamas, then we talk about Iran, then we talk about drug trade in Colombia and Venezuela and Mexico. And we're really talking about the fight between liberty, the United States supreme law of the land, the Constitution, and the advocacy of the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution on one side, and the Communist Manifesto on the other side, and where nations live in between those realities. I mean, that's really what's being discussed here, right?
It is, Sam, and it kind of made me wonder, why is the president of Mexico criticizing and assailing President Trump for going after Maduro? Yet
because the president of Mexico is a socialist. That's why.
Well, and they have a huge
partnership,
and they have a huge business, if you will, that is narco-terrorism. Well, no, I'm not going to say terrorism, although most of it is. They have a huge business in narcotics, and it's
for sure.
It's at least 10% of the GDP for the country of Mexico. So is she defending that? Is she trying to make sure that the cartels stay in business in her country? I think so. But Argentina does just the opposite. The president of Argentina says, "Good for you, President Trump." Chile said the same thing. And other countries in Latin America have said, "Thank you, President Trump." The people of Venezuela who ran away, 8 million people who have vacated Venezuela, have thanked President Trump. I think that is a huge statement in and of itself.
Well, and a lot of people in America are saying, "Oh my heavens." And one of the points that Trump made, this is a very interesting point too, when we talk about deportation, along with some of these other discussions. I know this sounds like we're going around the barn with all these things, but they all have, in my opinion, relationships that we may not understand. And that's the reason that I'm spending time on this, because I think we need to give Trump a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on a lot of these things. Because, and the reason I'm saying this is because, again, when he says something at first, you're like, "Oh my gosh, he's way out crazy." And then we find out, no, he's right. And so when you look at this discussion about, say, Denmark's prime minister saying, "Hey, would Trump stop the threats about taking over Greenland?" Well, I don't think we need to have threats over this. I don't know why Denmark is so dead set on holding Greenland. I don't really understand a lot of that. But at the end of the day, I kind of wonder, if you've got Russia and China all over Greenland, you've got drug traffickers and narco terrorists in our hemisphere. I mean, that's basically, Cuba and Venezuela in bed with Russia and China and possibly even North Korea, if you really want to pull the strings on that thing. You kind of come back to and say, this is a global, real battle here. It's almost like the war in heaven continued on earth. It's good versus evil. It isn't Republican. It isn't Democrat. It isn't just drug trade. It's all the above. And it's coming to a head. Are we going to religiously deal with this? Or are we going to deal with this from a war mentality, from a country, from a patriot point of view? How are we going to look at this? And the plot thickens. I think that Greenland is important to us, but I think we could do like a Louisiana Purchase. I think there's a better way to maybe go rather than having people feel threatened. Now, the problem with this whole Greenland play is additionally, Katie Miller, that's the wife of the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, she basically says, "Hey, Greenland's coming soon." Well, how do we navigate this without making it a threat to Greenland? I mean, you've got Greenland and Denmark, and then Denmark is part of the, on our side, so to speak, on this thing. They're covered by NATO guarantees and some of these kind of things. So how do you navigate that, Sheriff, in a way that is protective to our nation from a security point of view, that rejects this evil that seems to be permeating the world right now, but yet not lose friends in the process? I mean, how do we navigate that? Trump's got a massive art of the deal on his plate, sir.
Absolutely, Sam. And while you were talking about that, it hit my heart that, boy, am I glad I'm not president. This is an extremely difficult situation. Trying to walk the fine line between all of that for President Trump and his administration. Wow. This is really, really going to take some artful steps by the president. I admire him for what he's trying to do. And mistakes are going to be made along the way, but I think so far he's done the right thing. And Did he follow the Constitution 100%? No. Am I concerned that he's not stopping and reading all these people that he's arresting and attacking and getting rid of the drugs and the cartels and the human traffickers without reading them the Miranda warning? That's fine with me that he doesn't. And I say that to the point that, yeah, he's just not following every step in the Constitution. And maybe because of all the threats from Congress and their subversion and their treason, maybe he did it the right way.
Are you at all worried about this idea that, hey, we're starting a nation build? I mean, if we go ahead and go into Venezuela and we decide we're going to help them get their ports squared away because Maduro screwed up all the ports and he left them in economic ruins.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go ahead and, do the ports, take care of the oil, invest in this, bring all these big oil people in. But I mean, how much nation building and how much if we take Greenland and hey, we need Canada too, don't we, for crying out loud? And, I mean, by golly, might as well take over Mexico while we're at it too, Sheriff, because, man, we got to stop that drug corridor. At what point does it become so aggressive you go, wait a minute, hold on, we've lost sight of what's important? I think that's a balance that should be discussed. We'll have your thoughts in mere seconds. You're watching and listening to the one and only hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. It's called Liberty Roundtable Live.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Recent studies show that parents who smoke in the home are more likely to have children who smoke.
Yes, in fact, my brother, he's 22 now. He told me and my father that's why he started smoking. One of the reasons why he started smoking is because my dad was around, and they saw my dad smoking. My dad said, okay, I don't want you to smoke. I don't want you to watch what I'm doing.
Recent studies also show that in homes where parents don't smoke, their children usually don't smoke either.
I am the way I am because my grandparents taught me what not to do. They gave me morals. They gave me belief. They gave me something to believe in. They just taught me well. I love them. I do.
Smoking. If you think you're old enough to start, you're smart enough to stop. A public service message from this station and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
All right, back with you live. It's Sam Bushman and Sheriff Mack breaking down this Maduro thing in Russia and China and Greenland and Mexico. I mean, it's just like all over the place on one hand, but it's very strange. On one hand, we want to shut down the Epstein files. On the other hand, we want to stop drug and sex traffickers, right? I just don't get it exactly. But really, the question becomes nation building. And how far do you go in this? Do you do nation building in Venezuela? Do you take back the Panama Canal and do some building there? Do you go ahead and, what's going to happen in Greenland? How do we get rid of the Russia and China naval ships and subs and some of these things there? I don't know. It just seems like, to me, it seems a little bit too big to wrestle with all at once. And your point's well taken, Sheriff. Oftentimes we don't hear about these things, and then they get worse and worse and worse and worse. I'd like to hear that, hey, we need to do some maintenance on this building, just so to speak, while we can do it. What I don't want to know is, oh, my gosh, this building needs work. The roof just fell in. Oh, folks, we should have been working on it long ago. And that was your point here, that all this is coming to a head under Trump, and justifiably so in many ways. But I think it's been that we've neglected this, and this has been kind of covered up and not talked about for a long time. That's one of the keys to this discussion too, that people need to understand. We're just getting caught up to the problems, folks, and we've got a big learning curve there. But when do we end up nation building, and when do we kind of lose sight of what we really ought to be doing, which is protecting the American people, America first, baby? Sheriff?
Well, there's protecting America first thing, which I totally agree with. But when we watch other governments and other regimes, such as Fidel Castro, that we watched for years, and of course JFK tried to take him out, and that was arguably one of the reasons why he was assassinated. We obviously we don't know the connection between Castro and those who actually pulled the trigger, but it seemed to make sense because of the timing. But this is the thing. You and I both agree with being very careful about entangling alliances, and the Founding Fathers said we should never have them, like NATO and others that we've had since then. The United Nations is another, entangling alliances. But where do we go? I don't support the United States getting involved in foreign wars that really we have no business getting involved in. But at the same time, I don't want to watch where, and I don't want to be in a country where we could do something about the oppression and the murdering and the incarceration of dissidents who they say are dissidents, they're just enemies of the president of that country or the prime minister or the dictator. I don't want to sit by and say, wow, we can't get involved when all these Christians are being murdered just because they're Christians. And most of those people that we're talking about are black Christians. And I don't care what color they are, just like you and I said a little while ago. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Asians. I don't care if it's Latin America. I don't care what country it is. I don't want to sit by and watch people being tortured, thrown into prisons without food and water, hardly at all, or just let them rot. And because they've done nothing except speak out against the current regime. And the lesser of the two evils there to me is that we cannot stand by and watch other dictators and communist dictators, and that should scare Americans in Seattle and New York City. But I don't want to stand by and if we can go help those people and just let them get a start on freedom and let them run their own countries, but without the killing, the murder, the murdering, the sexual exploitation of children. I'm not going to stand by and watch that. I will go and fight myself. If they needed more people to go and fight and help, I would go. But
and that's where the big rub is, Sheriff, is how far do we go in this? We all agree that, hey, we don't want people being murdered, innocents murdered and destroyed. How far do we go? And, hey, then what do we do when we get there? If we bomb say, who knows?
But right now, look at the.
Do we have to nation build after that? What do we do here, and what happens? For example,
look at the example in Venezuela right now. That's our biggest example.
Yep.
So right now, there's an activist there. I think her name is Machado, who got the Nobel Peace Prize for standing against Maduro, but she's been in hiding. And now they say, well, let's turn it over to her. But there's a vice president that maybe it's the vice president that's there. I might have the names wrong. But regardless, this woman has risked her life and her family to stand for liberty in Venezuela.
She has, and I do understand she's a freedom fighter. This vice president's a super socialist, though. And right now, what are we waiting for? The Venezuelan economy to completely collapse before we can get oil rigs up and running? And, how do we manage this country? We say, what is President Trump the president of Venezuela now? I mean, at some point, you kind of go, wait a minute, how far can this go? And where does our responsibility start and end? And I think one of the great rules that I use, and maybe I'm just not educated enough, but follow me. When we're in defensive posture, we're doing great. When we're in offensive posture, it kind of goes south fast. When we say we're going to run that country, well, we have to, because we took out the leader. And if you're not careful, somebody else will run it worse.
Right.
That we find ourselves in that quandary all the time. And time in and day out, time and time again, we kind of find out, oh, well, we put a freedom fighter supposedly in a spot where bad guys were. And then, hey, that freedom fighter becomes the next bad guy. I mean, it's very, very difficult here. And that's why the founders warned so carefully against nation building, against running other countries, against toppling people and having regime change and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I understand the security risks, but I also understand if we're not very careful, we're going to be looked at as the world's bully, even though it's really communist China and Russia and stuff like that are at the helm of this. Right. I believe that's really the core of why this is. Look, they're the ones that are surrounding Taiwan doing their military parades right now and military kind of show of force around Taiwan. That's China. You've got Russia being an aggressor. You've got, okay, at some point, though, we're going to look like the bad guys. The blowback principle of the CIA and Ron Paul and others documented is real. And so how do we prevent from becoming this hegemonist nation where we think we're in control of everyone else, but yet protect ourselves? You know, that balance is something that's really you got to thread the needle on that sucker big time. And that's been really our problem over the last many decades is we haven't done very well at it, Sheriff.
Yeah, that worries me. Like I said, Sam, it really worries me. But again, let's use Germany as an example. What if the United States had done the same thing that Trump did to Maduro, that we had done that to Hitler when he was at the beginning stages of his Holocaust?
Well, it might save thousands, millions of lives.
Millions of lives.
What we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and then wouldn't it have been smart and reasonable to make sure that we had a presence there, to make sure that somebody, Hitler's number two man, just didn't take over? And so, of course, it would have been. And of course, we're saving lives and we're helping people. And we're, okay, they establish a new government. And maybe it's not a constitutional republic like ours. But as long as people have a say in their own government, and that there's freedom and a free economy, and just replacing one dictator with another is not going to be helpful. And I think that's why Trump is being careful on that. And so I agree with that. I agree with taking out Maduro, and I would have agreed totally historically with taking out Hitler.
Do you want to now nation build in Venezuela? Do you want to run the country? I mean, who
I would
does
love
that?
to go help. I would love to go help. I would be the ambassador to Venezuela. I tried to do that for El Salvador, but I was ignored. So I believe that there is a peaceful process that can benefit every nation in Latin America. And it's that people must be in charge of their government, not just voting, but really in charge. And that's what happened in America. That's what made America great.
Well, and that's the problem that I have is we're not even in charge of our own government at this point, Sheriff. We need to look a little bit, internally or whatever, cleanse the inner vessel, so to speak, and look kind of at our and say, hey, we got to get our act together before we're going to run around and pretend we can help the world. Right now, we can't even help ourselves. We can't even find out if a Jeffrey Epstein drug /sex/ prostitution ring is continuing or not. The president says it's fake news and a hoax for me to even bring that up, right?
Yeah, that's, there's other worse things going on in our country. And look, and of course, the Democrats are going to blame the Republicans. The Republicans are blaming the Democrats, and they're both right. How many times have we said that? They're both right.
And they're both wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And Washington was correct when he said a two-party system will be the bane of American liberty. And so that's what we're looking at, because they're more loyal to their party than they are to America and to the people.
And I think we need to look internally a lot more for our own country, rather than just, for some reason, presidents, whenever they're in their second terms, they always go international and they always step in it and cross that line where they just get too aggressive to where it makes the rest of the world believe, falsely maybe, and maybe true, that we're just the bully of the world. And that's the problem. One last story before the end of the hour. We've only got seconds. The CDC drops 6 out of 14 child vaccine recommendations. They narrowed the scope after Donald Trump's order. That's actually some good news. It's rare to get good news, but they actually followed, believe it or not, Denmark, Germany, and Japan for the guidance on those vaccines. So there you have that. All right.
Way to go, RFK Jr.
Amen. Thanks for being alongside with the ride. Sheriff Richard Mack at CSPOA.org. And yours truly, syndicated by the Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.